been living in our expedition truck for almost a year now. And if you've been following along, you know that it's seen a little bit of abuse over the last 20,000 miles, 2 countries, I think 20 states that we've visited in that time. And when we got back from Mexico in the spring, we knew that it was time for some serious maintenance and upgrades. So today we are actually above the Arctic Circle in Alaska. And we've been on an amazing trip this summer filming our next series for you guys. But we're gonna take a minute today to talk about the things that we decided to upgrade before we got on the road to Alaska and how they've been treating us so far. So before we got on the road up to Alaska for the summer, we spent about a week with our partners Overlander Global, and they helped us to install some of our newest upgrades and do some serious maintenance on the truck to make sure that the next 20,000 miles are just as good as the first. In our time at the shop, we worked on our suspension and brakes. We also added some new lights, an awning, and a mount for an outdoor table. And then importantly, we also added a new roof rack, which you can see right now, and brush guards for our solar panels on the roof. Today we're going to talk through the installation of all of these upgrades, but we're also going to do a little review of how things have been holding up since we've been on the road for several thousand miles and a few months since we installed them. Just like when we initially built the truck at Overlander Global last year, we only had a limited time at the shop, so we backed it in and got right to work. The first thing we did was work on the brakes and wheel bearings. The Fuso has drum brakes all around, and they were one of the few original wear parts that we hadn't yet replaced on the truck. We decided to pull the brakes out, add new shoes, get the drums resurfaced, and flush the brake lines. This turned out to be a huge project and took us a few days to complete. Everything in there was so heavy, and we also needed to pull the wheel bearings out to get access to the shoes.
What you doing down there?
Fixing our brakes.
Doing a great job.
Doing crunches.
Eventually, we got it all disassembled, had the drum spun at a local shop to get an even surface, and then we replaced all of the bearings. We used a ton of grease, a tub for each wheel. After all of this work, we've noticed an increase in our braking abilities, and we definitely feel like it was worth all the effort. With the wheels still off, we next dove into working on the suspension. You might remember that we broke both of our rear leaf springs while in Mexico. We recently released a video about all the drama behind the mechanical issues, so you can watch that if you want to hear more about our experience. Long story short, the original springs were too long, and that's why they failed. Based on advice from Alcan, we had them build even shorter springs that will hopefully be even less prone to failure than the ones we installed in Baja. To install these new springs, we first pulled the old ones out. We jacked up the truck, supported the axles, and undid the bolts holding them to the frame and the axles. We then pried apart the spring packs, installed the new main spring into the pack, and put the pack back together. Then it went back onto the truck. We repeated this on both sides. Though someone wanted to take a break, we continued working on improving our suspension by installing front and rear Timbren bump stops.
These Timbrens promise to be a pretty easy install, just 2 bolts and it replaces the stock bump stop. So hopefully this is a quick install process. So this is the stock bump stop. This is the Timbren. You can see the Timbren's a whole lot taller and it's also going to be squishier. So it's going to help absorb the last couple inches of travel and make it a much smoother bottom out.
Install was indeed quick, and they each took only about 15 minutes. These bump stops absorb more energy and allow the axle to move more than the stock bump stops. The Timbrens have removed a ton of body roll and have really transformed how this truck rides both on and off-road. We can't speak highly enough of these, and compared to most suspension upgrades, they're quite affordable, easy to install, and reliable. Let's just say we've definitely had a chance to test our suspension upgrades while up here in Alaska, and they've been holding up great. We're really happy we took the time to make these changes. While our truck is very big and has a ton of room for storage, we wanted more. So Alan drew up a plan to build a roof rack on the cab of our truck. We cut, bent, and welded this aluminum tubing together and then mounted it using the stock holes on the roof. We bought these aluminum storage bins to strap to the rack. They've proven to be watertight so far, which is really saying something because we've driven through a lot of rain. It's been so nice having some extra storage with the addition of this rack. Next up on our to-do list was to install rails on the roof to protect our solar panels. We do a lot of off-road driving, which means we frequently go through low-hanging branches on trails designed for trucks half our size. We were worried about a branch getting stuck under a panel and potentially ripping it off the roof, so we took these long pieces of angled aluminum, cut gaps for where the solar panel mounts are attached to the roof of the truck, and then glued the aluminum onto the roof. We think they look awesome, and so far they've also done a great job at keeping branches from getting under the panels. It's given us even more confidence to keep getting off the beaten trail. Speaking of getting off the beaten path, we're so stoked to be partnering with Onyx Off-Road to help fuel our adventures. We use Onyx for all of our planning and route finding, and it's how we've been able to find some insanely epic campsites throughout our travels all over the US. With their easy-to-use app, you can build your route and navigate with offline maps, check the public and private land boundaries where you're planning to explore, and even read recent trail reports to see how conditions are in real time. Onyx helps us feel confident to push a little further out of our comfort zone without fearing that we're going to get our whole house into a sketchy situation. We'll have a link in this video's description so you can check out how Onyx can help you get out there. All right, now let's get back to work. Next, we added some side lights onto our bumper, which we call our camp lights. Super E hooked us up with these, and we put them in to complement our bigger driving lights. We use these when we roll into an area after dark looking for a campsite. They're pointed to the side so we can better assess what's to the left and right of the truck, mostly when we're looking into the woods. We tied them into our light control box so we can flip them on and off easily as we scout for camp. One of our favorite additions we made was adding this awesome awning made by Kamek. We wanted to install an awning when we originally built the truck, but they all seemed so cumbersome to set up and take down. Knowing ourselves, we knew that adding even 10 minutes of setup to our daily routine meant we simply wouldn't use the awning. But this Kamek design takes 5 seconds to deploy. It's so quick and easy that we don't even think twice about setting it up to spend some time outside. Last but not least, our final mod was to add this table mount under the truck subframe. It was our quickest and easiest upgrade. We simply screwed some C-channel aluminum into the subframe and then added a bungee cord to keep the table secure. This allows us to use a standard fold-out table when we're outside without taking any of our precious cargo space in the garage. We can deploy this in seconds, and it makes a great place to cook outside on nice days.
Oh, it's so good.
I'd call that a dinner with a view.
Not too shabby.
Well, there you have it. All of the upgrades and modifications we made to our overlanding truck. A huge shout out to Alan and Francie at Overlander Global for once again allowing us to call their beautiful shop home for a few days, and for their continued expertise and assistance with our overlanding journey. We couldn't do it without them. We've really been enjoying all of these changes so far, and we're stoked that we took the time to accomplish all of the things on our to-do list. And it's always fun to have an Alaskan road trip to test things out on. Speaking of Alaskan road trips, we're planning to share a whole series about our summer of adventuring in the last frontier. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and thanks so much for following along.